Hello, reporter room investigators. It's great to see you today. Today, we're going to be talking about Bryan Kohberger versus the police. Who is telling us the truth? Because both sides cannot be correct. So, one of the sides is not being honest with us, or maybe just dancing around. There's ways to dance around and still get the truth out there. We're going to go through all of the evidence together, and we're going to be going through the affidavit um, that was written up by the head of the investigation, which is Brett Payne. And we're also going to be talking about who the perpetrator was targeting, how he planned the crimes. And we're going to talk about the search warrants and some of the motions that Ann Taylor wanted to keep out. I did some more digging and found out a couple of other things. We're also going to talk about Bethany and Dylan and the unknown male DNA that was found at the crime scene. So, who's telling the truth, Bryan Kohberger or the police? Let's dig into it. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects and share with you how to do the same thing. If you haven't subscribed to Reporter Room, please do. Let me pull this up. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
A lot of what I'm doing today too is responding to questions that I got from you guys in the comment section over the last week. It's always interesting to read comments and see what you guys are thinking. And so I've also addressed your questions, your concerns about this case, in addition to all of this. So we have a really big live stream planned. I have 10 packages ready for you. Now, I believe that the perpetrator of these crimes, and Bryan Kohberger, is innocent until proven guilty. But because Ann Taylor is filing these motions on behalf of Bryan Kohberger, because the affidavit does address Bryan Kohberger, and because he's the only one who's been arrested, indicted, and is sitting in prison awaiting trial, I'm going to be talking about this case in terms of Bryan Kohberger. However, it must be said that he is innocent until proven guilty. So let's try to get in the mind of the alleged perpetrator. I do believe that these crimes were planned, and I'm wondering if there's another reason that Ann Taylor wanted to have Bryan Kohberger's Google searches suppressed. Because remember, everything the defense is trying to suppress, which is just a fancy way of saying they don't want the jury to see it, that means it's probably bad for the defense, right? You would let it in if it was good for the defense. So suppression that Ann Taylor wants is bad for Bryan Kohberger and probably good for the prosecution. So she's doing a really good job defending her client. Now, she wants to have his Google searches suppressed, and we talked about what some of those searches might be. And I did a little bit more consideration, especially after going through your comments in the comment section. And because he did make searches, I'm wondering if, besides searching out maybe some of the things that were used to perpetuate the crime, I'm wondering if it could be that there were some things in the searches that would raise some alarm, right? So maybe some searches on how to get away with certain things. I'm watching my words. Searches on doing away with people. Law enforcement also believes that he searched ways to not get caught. Now, maybe this is why Bethany saw a man that did not have anything on that night. Um, and people have asked, where's my sourcing? I showed it last week in multiple videos. Besides Judge Hippler, who talked about it in the hearing, we also have the Mirror, but we also have um, the the private investigator motion compelling Bethany to sit down with the defense team. So I showed you guys the receipts on that. But maybe the man that she saw really was dropping his clothes into a brown paper bag, like Judge Hippler talked about. So people have asked me, well, how did she see that if her bedroom faced the front? Well, she would have just heard some noises going on upstairs, and she would have come up the stairs. and that's where she would have seen, because I believe this took place on the second floor near the patio doors. So I'm going to talk about Dylan and Bethany and that unknown DNA in just a few minutes. So please stay with me. But I want to dig into some of the questions that you guys had for me. Um, so a couple of things would have been smart. One would have been for BK to have ordered that monkey suit. I shared with you about that in last week's live stream. And I think that's one of the reasons that Ann Taylor wants the Amazon searches suppressed. She doesn't want the jury to view his searches on Amazon. It could also be that he ordered that K-bar knife along with the monkey suit, which I believe he stripped off, because I do think that the perpetrator planned this, stripped it off at the patio door, dropped it into a brown paper bag, like we heard Judge Hippler talk about. And I believe that that he took some time on February 12th, prior to the crimes, to Dexter out his car. Now, I also believe that he was following the victims. Now, one of the questions that I get in the comment section, and I've gotten in the last week from you guys, is that if that BK couldn't have been stalking the victim, because the prosecution said he wasn't stalking. So I wanted to share with you how narrow the definition of stalking is in Idaho. Let me take this down for a second and let me pull this up. Okay. I shared this before, but I'm realizing I have new people that aren't familiar with any uh with any of the research that I've done. So I just want to show. Okay. So here's the definition. This is the official website of the Idaho legislature. And stalking in the second degree is a person who commits the crime of stalking in the second degree is a person who is knowingly and maliciously engaging in a course of conduct that seriously alarms, annoys, or harasses the victim, and is such that would cause a reasonable person substantial emotional distress, or engages in a course of conduct as such that would cause a reasonable person to be in fear of or physical injury. So, in other words, to sum it up, to be convicted of stalking, or to be having some type of stalking behavior, by Idaho's definition, the victims of the crime would have to know that they were being stalked. Now, I don't think that BK had any idea. I don't think, I'm sorry, that the victims had any idea who BK even was. I don't think they knew who he was. Maybe they waited on him at the Mad Greek or something like that. I don't know. Mad Greek denies this, but could be something like that. But I don't think that the victims had any idea of who Bryan Kohberger was. So I just wanted to share that with you, and let's continue on. I am going to say hello to everybody in chat, because this is a interactive live stream. Please drop me your questions. I do want to hear them. So I'm going to say hello to everybody in chat. Let me just give everybody a chance for people to come in, and then we're going to say hello and take some questions. So drop your questions for me. And I have a question for the chat. Do you think that any of the four victims were aware that BK existed? Do you think they knew he was allegedly, because he's innocent until proven guilty, he was allegedly following them? Because I'm going to show some proof that he was aware of the victim. I know Ann Taylor said there was no DNA evidence in the car, but now we're finding out that she wants to suppress the evidence in BK's car. So I think you can parse words enough where you're still telling the truth, but maybe not telling the whole story. So there are reports, and I'm going to show them to you. I'm going to show you receipts. Some of this information is stuff I've gone through in prior live streams, but it's been a year, and some people are new to the channel and don't know what the heck I'm talking about. So law enforcement did describe these crimes as being, quote, targeted. And so I do believe that Maddie, and possibly also Kaylee, because Kaylee posted that iconic picture of herself with all of the roommates, with Ethan holding Xana on, uh, you know, uh, with Ethan and Xana in the picture. She posted that picture to Instagram, and we have heard from Christy and Steve Gonzalez that Bryan Kohberger was following both Maddie and Kaylee on Instagram. In fact, according to Steve and Christy Gonzalez, he was liking Maddie's photos. Now, multiple news outlets say that BK was also messaging one of the victims on Instagram, but she was not responding. So I was asked, would I show the receipts? And of course I will. Let me go ahead and move myself out of the way. And let's do that because I do want you guys to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so you guys can also do your own research by just going onto Google, but here is the ID. So there was also an ID connected to one of the victims found in Bryan Kohberger's car. So this is another reason why Ann Taylor may want the search for BK's car, why she filed that motion. We were trying to go through last week and think about what was in that car. And one of you guys reminded me that in the car, inside a glove, inside the box, was reportedly one of the victim's IDs. His connection to the students has remained unclear, but an unsealed search warrant states officers found ID cards in his car 6 weeks after the crimes. I'm watching my words. Sources have told NewsNation that they belong to someone who lived in the Moscow residence, but a gag order on the trial has stopped police from confirming any details about the cards. So remember, the gag order was put in place by who? Put a 1 if you think the gag order was put in place by the judge after being asked by the prosecution. Put a 2 if you think the gag order was put in place by the judge if it was asked for by the defense. And let's see what you guys respond to that. So this is the iconic picture that I'm talking about. I'm not going to, let me see if I can just get to the picture. Oh no, it's going to try to play a whole video. Okay, I don't want to do that, but let's continue on. Let me share this one instead. Okay, let me grab this. I have like, let me add this back in. Okay.
Yeah, although prosecutors don't.
All right, so that's I hope that helps answer the question about and I have more connections that I'm going to show you guys. Who else was connected? Well, and how do they connect? What are the sources? I got asked that. So I will show you guys what the sourcing is on that. So the perpetrator, I think it was Maddie. It's possible he went into Kaylee's room first. We do have reports from Dylan, and we're going to go through the affidavit and go through exactly what Dylan said, according to Officer Brett Payne, who was the lead investigator on this case. So we're going to do that in just a second. But remember, Murphy the dog was left untouched, and Kaylee's room, he was in there with the door closed. So either the perpetrator didn't enter Kaylee's room, or he could have just gone to Maddie's room first. If he had gone to Maddie's room first, then he was looking for Maddie and would have been surprised to find Kaylee in the same room, in the same bed with Maddie. So this is, and I'm going to talk about Dylan and Bethany and the unknown male DNA in just a few moments. And we're going to talk about the handprint in the members only live, which is going to be right after this. So I believe this is what I think happened that night. This is my theory based on all of the evidence and all of the research that I have done so far. And we won't find out if this is correct or not until we get to the trial. So I think that night that Maddie was the intended target. I think that the DoorDash delivery came, hold on. Sorry, I have a tickle. The DoorDash delivery came to the door, and we know that the Hyundai Elantra circled 1, 2, 3 times around. I believe the perpetrator let himself in through the sliding glass doors that were either unlocked, or it would be very easy to pop a sliding glass door if it didn't have additional locks in place. And remember, Moscow, Idaho had not had a crime like this in over 8 years. So I think he would have left the patio doors open to minimize DNA transfer. So the perpetrator, I believe, was wearing a monkey suit and had his car dextered out. He entered, leaving the patio doors open to minimize having to touch the doors on the inside to minimize DNA transfer. I think he headed straight upstairs to the 3rd floor to either Kaylee's room, which had the dog, or Maddie. And we're going to go through Dylan's statement in just a second. I'm going to just go through this, and then we're going to look at what Dylan said she heard that night and just see how it lines up. So the perpetrator entered Maddie's room and would have been surprised to find Maddie and Kaylee in the same room. And I think it was more of a struggle than maybe the perpetrator was anticipated. And I think this may be how he lost his knife sheath. Remember, law enforcement found it in the bed, underneath, and to the side of Maddie. So it was in the bedding. So how I believe this is how he lost the knife sheath, and I don't think he realized he did not have it with him. So I also think that this crime did not sound like what we imagined it to be. I know a lot of people have talked about how did the roommates not call law enforcement right away. And I do want to address that. So let me just show you. Remember the Jodi Arias case. Travis Alexander had roommates. Travis Alexander had roommates, and they did not report the crimes. He was lying on his bathroom floor for days, until Travis Alexander's friends came looking for them, and they're the ones that found Travis and called law enforcement. Now, we know Jodi Arias committed the crime because she's been found guilty, but also there are literally pictures of her committing the crime. So I just want to share with you that just because roommates don't hear anything or call law enforcement right away doesn't automatically mean that they've done something nefarious. I also want to bring up the Elizabeth Smart case as another example. Now, Elizabeth Smart's little sister was in the same bed with her, just similar to what happened with Maddie and Kaylee. Now, the abductor took Elizabeth and left her sister behind. The sister did not call out. She did not call for help. She lay in bed. So everybody processes things differently. And we now know that
Yeah, although prosecutors don't.
Was impaired. We know that she was impaired. She was not sober. So I just thought that was um, worth just mentioning those two cases, uh, and along with the roommate, and just say, well, let's give them a little bit of grace here. They haven't been charged with anything. If we're going to presume BK's innocence, then I think it's only fair to give them some benefit of the doubt. I'm going to check in with Chad in 1 second. So I think meanwhile, so BK went upstairs and did what he did, and I don't think it sounded like what we think it sounded like. I think it was quiet because Ethan and or the way the house carries sound, like I showed you in the video last week, with that outside wall between the front part of the house and the back side of the house, that maybe the sound travels differently in the house. So I think he went straight upstairs. I don't think it sounded like what we think it sounded like. And I think that Xana was in her room watching TikTok videos and eating her food. I think she left her TikTok video playing, possibly, and took her food out. And that's how that bag with her name on it, ended up on the counter near the kitchen sink. Now, when she went out to the kitchen, the patio doors are right there. It was cold that night. She would have felt the rush of cold air on her. And I think at that point, we know from Dylan's, and we're going to go through that affidavit, focusing on Dylan for a few minutes. We know she called out, somebody called out, there's someone here. I believe it was Xana when she realized the door was open. I think this awoke Ethan. Kaylee and Maddie had already been done away with, and I believe the perpetrator came down the stairs immediately and chased Xana back toward her room, at which point I think Ethan came out, and I'm going to watch my words here. The perpetrator did away with both of them. We're going to talk about Dylan and how she fits into this too, because she opened her door 3 times during all of this. Now, I think the perpetrator was stressed out. I don't think he was intending to do away with 4 people. He could have been, but I don't think that he was. And so I'm thinking that finding Kaylee and Maddie in the same room, in the same bed, would have been the first surprise. Having Xana still awake, eating food and bringing her food back out to the DoorDash and calling out, there's someone here, would have also been a surprise. So I think that at this point, the perpetrator was stressed out. He had done away with more people than he was planning to. And he hurried past Dylan. Maybe visual snow kept him from seeing, because visual snow can affect your periphery. So it can affect your periphery out here. It can affect your periphery right here. So I believe it could be just, something like this where he just did not see Dylan in his periphery as he went by. Maybe it was just because he was dark. It was dark. So we're going to talk about Dylan and Bethany. But I want to just go through what happens with the perpetrator standpoint. So I believe he then went to the patio doors and stripped off the monkey suit. And this is what, and dropped it into a paper bag. This is what Judge Hippler was talking about. This is what the Mirror article that I showed you last week was talking about. This is what um, the Ann Taylor's private investigator was talking about. And I've already made a video on that. So uh, you guys can look at the last live stream that I did. So 3 sources on that. You don't have to take my word for it. You can do your own research. You can listen to Judge Hippler. So the perpetrator exited through the open patio doors. He had taken his monkey suit off and didn't notice right away he did not have the knife sheath, got into his car and took the long route back to Pullman, Washington. So the perpetrator was on his way back. The cell phone, we know, switches off on the way from Pullman to Moscow, and it switches back on the way from Moscow back to Pullman. I don't think he realized he did not have the knife sheath. He had everything in his bag, and he was probably having a mixture of things. Fear, because he thought when somebody called there's someone here, that someone had dialed 911, but also some elation, because I do believe this was planned, and I do think, he was trying to see if he could get away with it. But I do think that the perpetrator returned to the crime scene the next morning trying to get back his knife sheath. And I think this is where the van's shoe print comes in, because I do think the neighbors reported seeing the door wide open that morning. So I think it's possible that he would have gone in quickly and then come back out quickly and maybe left the door open again to minimize DNA transfer. That's my theory on the case. Drop me a comment on what your theory is in the comment section below. So let's look at the probable cause affidavit and what Dylan says and see how all of this fits together. Let me grab it. Okay. So this, my sourcing on this is the probable cause affidavit, Exhibit A, the statement of Brett Payne. So we're going down to page 5. And we're going to talk about exactly what DM, we know is Dylan Mortensen. So let me grab a sip of water. We're going to go through that next. Let me say hello to chat really quick. I don't want to be rude. This is a interactive live stream. I'm really curious to see what you guys think. Hi, Kimmy. Hello, Wicked. We have a lot more stuff to go through. We're going to talk about everything related to this case, but we're going to dig into Dylan next. We're going to talk about smoking gun evidence. We're going to talk about who's right, the police versus the defense team. Who's telling the truth? Because someone is telling us the truth and someone is not. And maybe both sides are dancing around a little bit. But we're going to go through everything we know so far. And did BK really have connections to those victims or not? We're going to talk about that too. Bob Williams, and I'm going through your questions that you guys left for me last week. I do read your comments, and I'm going to respond to those and answer those. So we're going to do the affidavit last. Hi, Bob. Defense attorneys lie. I can't believe it. Well, I think what you can do is you can sort of tippy-toe around the truth, right? You can tippy-toe around what you think is, probably the truth. So you can say we found no DNA evidence in the car. That's different than we found no evidence in the car, right? So it could be, it could just be something like that. Hi, Leslie. Hi, brother Mike. Good to see you. This is our head mod. This is NJAS. By the way, thank you so much to our mods, channel members, and subscribers. I really appreciate you guys. Hi, Dabs. So come on in. Hi, Cynthia. So drop me, please give this a thumbs up. Let the algorithm know we're doing a G-rated. There won't be any negative words because some people do have little ones in the room. Micro Kimmy says, I'm going to be listening and working on a biology project. Well, I'm glad you're here, Kimmy. Thanks. Appreciate you. Okay, and welcome our newest channel member, Leslie. Keep it real. Welcome. I'm really glad to have you as part of the Reporter Room family. It's me. Mike is here. Yeah, probable. Yes, I do mean that. Mike says, did prosecution say he was not stalking any of the witnesses by mistake? No, I addressed that at the top of the thing. It's the definition of stalking in Idaho is so narrow, and I showed the receipts on that. The victims have to know that they're being followed or being watched for it to be considered stalking in Idaho. So great question. And it's one that I saw a couple of times in the comment section. Kami says, Kaylee's parents have been saying that they saw him following Kaylee Maddie. I believe them. Yeah. And I'm going to show you receipts on that. It wasn't just what they saw either. There's other things too. I'm going to show you proof of all the connections. We're getting there. Let me just say hello. Hi, Esmeralda. Let me see if we have okay, so I did the poll. Let's see what we have. We have twos. I see a lot of twos. Hi, Redhead Michelle. Sujo said, I believe he surveilled them and not stalked them, in my opinion. That could be. Remember, stalking in Idaho means they had to be aware of it. They had to be feeling harassed by it. They had to feel threatened by it. And none of those things happened. I don't think the victims even knew that he existed, in my opinion. Mike says, I wonder if that slider door was broke. I think they used a bar stool to lock that slider. This guy definitely knew how to get in. It wasn't by chance. Yeah, Jodi Arias. The case was insane, and I think she's just really a head case too. Rich Buddy said, this case is already blown up. They have nothing on this kid, not one shred of evidence. Well, we haven't seen the evidence yet because of the gag order. So who put the gag order in place? I saw a lot of twos. And if you guessed two, you are right. It was Ann Taylor and the defense team. She did put the gag order in place. And the reason that we're not being shown the evidence is because the prosecution is under a gag order to protect Bryan Kohberger's right to a fair trial. And so we are not going to see any evidence. But we do have a lot of clues that we're going through, and I am going to show you that he did have connections to the victims in just a second, so please stay with me. And Jazz says, I believe there's a ton of evidence. It will all come out in court. Mike said, there's a gag order. We haven't seen the evidence. There's definitely evidence. Oh, I agree. I don't think they would be going after for making this a capital case with a pew pew squad, watching my words, which is what the penalty is in Idaho. I don't think they would be doing that if they didn't feel like there was evidence there. Thank you so much, Njaz, for your $10 super sticker. And you guys, I added another live stream for this Friday on this case because we still have to go through the handprint. We haven't really gone through that together yet. So Dan says, never trust the police. Well, I think trust and verify, right? Trust and verify. Norma Freeland said, why go to Dylan's door to get it? Why would go to Dylan's door to get it? To get what, Norma? I'm not sure what it is. Wick says, why take an innocent man over a year and a half to come up with an alibi? Yeah, that's another question I've seen for a long time. Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much to Kami, who's been a channel member for 20 months. If you are not a channel member, feel free to hit join our membership. We do have a really great group. Mike says, it's weird though. No one said not stalking witnesses. So did he say not stalking the victims either? The prosecution just simply said that that when Ann Taylor was calling people with her survey, that the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, stood up and said there was no stalking. And we were all like, what? But when we looked up what the definition of stalking was, and that was one of you guys that brought that to my attention, which is why I love reading your comments, because I learned from you guys too. When we found out what the definition was, we were like, oh, okay. They had to know it to be considered stalking in Idaho. Norma says, and if you look at the back deck, it was lit up, Christmas lights and bright. So I don't think he would undress outside the sliding doors for the neighbors to be. Well, I will find out when the Bethany takes the stand. Because I think even if the prosecution decided not to call her, I think Ann Taylor will. If it helps her case. Hi, this is our other head mod. This is 6 Cents Amelia. Great to see you. Vic Lodge said, are we not beyond the clues? Well, we're still going through clues because of the gag order. We've really been Jen said, if you're by yourself, you couldn't come up with an alibi. Well, his alibi is he was gazing at the sun, the stars that night. That's his alibi. Yeah, and Mike, thank you so much. Mike is one of the admins in our Facebook group. We have a really good Facebook group. If you type in Reporter Room and Bryan Kohberger, it should pop up for you. Come on in. If I'm not here, you'll find me there. Lizzie says they can't call following on social media, otherwise we'd all be stalkers. Right, exactly. There'd probably be legal terms, or they couldn't put. This is such a great comment. There would probably legal terms, or they could be in legal trouble with the platforms. That's a great comment. All right, so let's get back to this. So I want to go. We're going to talk about what Dylan did, and then I'm going to show you some proof that BK did have, for your consideration, that BK did have connections to the victim. So let's go through what Dylan actually said and line that up with the theory that I just shared with you a moment ago. And where's my, I can see it here. Where's my affidavit? I'm looking for Fox News. There it is. Okay. So my sourcing on this is Fox News, but it's the affidavit. Okay, so I'm going down. I'm on page 4. We know a dog can be heard barking at 4:17 p.m. a.m. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernodle's bedroom. So DM stated, let's go through what Dylan said. So Dylan said she opened her door for the 3rd time, but I want to go through all of what she said. So let's scroll up to page 3. So Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residents were home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms, by approximately 4 a.m. This is with the exception of Xana, who received a DoorDash, and it describes her as Kernodle, which is her last name, who received a DoorDash at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. Law enforcement, he just says it right here, identified the DoorDash delivery driver who reported this information. So they know who the DoorDash driver is. And so a lot of people were saying maybe it was him. They know who it is. I'm sure the DoorDash driver will be called to the stand. Okay, so let's go through what Dylan told law enforcement. She said she originally went to sleep in her room. That's on the southeast side of the 2nd floor. Dylan stated that she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Goncalves, so that's Kaylee, playing with her dog, which is Murphy, upstairs in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Now, I wonder if this is because BK opened the door to the room, or was the dog just sort of running around? Or, because the dog could have been responding to whatever it heard on the 3rd floor, even though Dylan didn't hear anything. So again, I don't think these crimes sounded like what we think they sound like, because Ethan and Xana didn't call 911 either. A short time later, Dylan Mortensen said she heard who she thought Goncalves say something to the effect of, quote, "There's someone here." Now, she thought it was Kaylee, and maybe it was, but I think it's more likely it would have been Xana. Xana was awake. I think somehow that DoorDash delivery bag came out of her room and ended up on the kitchen sink. And I believe it's because she brought it there. I believe the patio door was open. She felt the cold air, and she called back to Ethan, who was probably asleep in the room. "There's someone here." Dylan said she looked out of the bedroom but did not see anything when she heard. So I think the comment, "There's someone here," would have brought the perpetrator hurrying back down the stairs. So Dylan said she looks out of her bedroom. She didn't see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. And Dylan said that she opened her door a second time when she thought she heard was crying coming from Xana's room. Dylan then said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." And I believe that the male voice that Dylan heard was the perpetrator. And I think that some people have said it could be Ethan. I don't know if we'll ever know who said it, but I suspect it was the perpetrator trying to get close to Xana. This is why she was crying. What we know Ethan was found first, as law enforcement, and first his roommates made their way in, and called 911 right away. But as law enforcement came in, Ethan was found first, and I believe that he was trying to protect Xana, and I think that to get close to Xana, he said, the perpetrator said, "I'm here to help you," which is really diabolical when you think about what happened. At approximately 4:17 a.m., the security camera located at the 1122 King Road, a residence immediately to the 1112 King Road, my bad, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up a distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. A dog can be heard barking numerous times, but not starting until 4:17 a.m. So I think the way that Kaylee and Maddie were done away with didn't sound like what we thought it sounded like. That's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So the security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Xana's bedroom. So I think the thud is either Ethan or Xana. Dylan stated she opened the door for the third time, and she heard crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking toward her. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller. Now, I believe Dylan is around 5'10", so she was kind of looking at him. And so 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Dylan as she stood in a, quote, frozen shock phase. Now, I've had a lot of people say frozen, even in my channel, we talked about this. A frozen shock phase doesn't last 8 hours. However, we just remember Elizabeth Smart's sister, remember Travis Alexander's roommates. And just, when you live in a party house, and Dylan was the youngest roommate, when you live in a party house and you see a man and you have all these, single young women living with you, I don't think it, just could have been a friend. I don't think your mind is immediately going to, all of my friends have been done away with. And also remember that in 2022, seeing somebody wearing a mask wouldn't be the same as seeing somebody in a mask today due to the pandemic that was going on. So I believe that the male walked toward the back sliding glass door, and Dylan locked herself in her room after seeing the male. Dylan did not state she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the perpetrator, the M word is used here, left the scene. So we know that from what Judge Hippler said during the hearings, from the Mirror article, and also from Ann Taylor's own private investigator that I already showed you in another video, so I'm not going to bring that up again, that Bethany also saw a man stripping off, probably a monkey suit, and dropping it into a brown paper bag. So Dylan's statements to law enforcement, reviews of forensic downloads of records from Bethany Funk and Dylan's phone, and a video of the suspect video as described leads investigators to believe that the crimes, I'm watching my words, I use the H word here, occurred before 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. Okay, so and then they found, and this is what I think happened the next morning. I think he went home. He was probably feeling a combination of all kinds of things. His adrenaline would have been going. I think when he got back to his apartment, he realized he did not have the knife sheath. And that's when I think he had to go back. And that's why he returned around 9 a.m. the next morning, why his phone is pinging again at the 1122 King Road house. And during the processing of the crime scene, investigators found a latent shoe print. This was located during the second processing of the crime scene by the ISP forensic team, first by using a presumptive blood test and then amino black, a protein stain that detects the presence of cellular material. So the detected shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern similar to the pattern of a Vans-type shoe sole just outside the door of Dylan Mortensen. So this is consistent with Dylan's statement of where the suspect went. Okay, so let's leave that and let me grab the next thing for you guys. is I want to just show you a couple of things. So I also want to tell you that this was not BK had another creepy thing going on. Um, let me show you this. Let me grab it. This was this was creepy. Okay, so this I don't think will come into the trial. But I could be wrong. It could come in, but I don't think it's going to come in. We'll see. Okay, so Kohberger allegedly broke into a female colleague's home. Remember, he was a teaching assistant at WSU, Washington State University. So reports say he broke into a colleague's home in an unrelated, and I think what this speaks to is not whether he's guilty or innocent of the crime that he's being accused of, but it speaks to his ability to plan things out. That he did plan things out. So, according to Dateline and NewsNation, those are the sources on this, he tended and befriended a woman at Washington State University where he worked as a teaching assistant. He broke into her home months before the 1122 King Road November 13th crimes were committed. He moved things around but didn't take anything. Now, remember, he's tending and befriending this woman. The woman was not identified, but who was not identified, so we don't know who this is. I don't know if she's going to testify for the prosecution or not. I hope she does. Allegedly asked BK to come over to assist her, and that's when he suggested she get security cameras. Reports say he offered to install them, and she said yes. She installed she let him install security cameras inside her home. Authorities believe he could have accessed the footage remotely because he knew her Wi-Fi password. So he was allegedly, he's innocent until proven guilty, but he was allegedly watching this woman dress, undress. So this again shows a level of planning, a level of cunning that I think does fit. And according to Dateline, one of BK's own sisters found it odd that he was wearing latex gloves. Remember, when law enforcement arrested him, he had latex gloves on, and he was separating out his trash from his parents' trash and putting his trash into plastic Ziploc bags, zipping them. And law enforcement, who had had him under surveillance for a couple of days, had been watching him take his trash down to the neighbor's trash can to discard it. So, according to Dateline, one of Bryan Kohberger's sisters found it odd that he was wearing latex gloves at home, and at one point noted that Kohberger lived near the scene of the crimes, watching my words, and drove a white Hyundai Elantra, the same type of car that police were searching. So, even his sister thought his behavior was odd. Okay, so let me grab this one, and I want us to show you. Let me take this out. Okay. So one of you guys was kind enough to remind me. Okay, so this is one of several connections that Bryan Kohberger allegedly had to the victims. My sourcing on this is Newsweek. So according to court documents unsealed last month, and okay, ID gloves inside a box were among the items seized during a search of Bryan Kohberger's parents' home in Albrightsville. So is this why Ann Taylor filed a motion to suppress the evidence that we thought maybe it was related to the tablet because tablet kept coming up? But I'm wondering if it's an ID belonging to one of the victims, and that's why she wants the search of his parents' house to be suppressed, or maybe it could be a couple of things. So Jennifer Coffindaffer, a former FBI agent, said the ID was found concealed inside a glove inside a box. And then she goes on to talk about that. So Michael McAuliffe, a former federal prosecutor and elected state attorney, told Newsweek and that any items connected to the crimes, they're using the M word, but I'm not using that in case you have small children in the room, found would be connected. It said that any items connected to the crimes would be found in Kohberger's parents' home, which is across the country from the scene of the crimes, quote, would be significant and even damning. Yes, because how would you get IDs belonging to the victims? Not not in Moscow, not in 15 minutes away in Pullman, but hundreds of miles away in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. He said, quote, the reports of the IDs were hidden in a box or glove compartment could meet the standard, but we need to know more specifics. And remember, who put the gag order in place? The defense team did, to protect his right to a fair trial, which I think is great. Ann Taylor's doing a good job representing BK. But this may be why she doesn't want the evidence from she filed the motion to suppress law enforcement from being able to produce the evidence that they collected from his parents' house, is because of this glove inside the box. So thank you for your comments, you guys. It really did help. McLaughlin said the IDs were only generally described on the inventory list for the search, so the connection is unclear. So we won't find out. We won't find out. So, but if the ID, if he took it as a trophy and it belongs to one of the victims, and it would match the importance of the defendant's DNA evidence being found on the knife sheath. Juries love DNA, but if that ID belongs to Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, if that ID belongs to anybody that was in that house that night, Dylan, Bethany, that links him to the crimes. It's another link. And I think the jury, I think that, this may be why Ann Taylor is working so hard to get the evidence collected at his parents' house suppressed. So we won't know, but the gag order, he says here, but the gag order prevents it from being confirmed. So law enforcement can't deny it. They can't confirm it. So we're going to have to wait. But I wanted to show you what my sourcing was on that, because people said there was no connection to BK to any. Oh my gosh, I've put myself in the way. Sorry. Let me move myself. So I just wanted to, sorry about that. That was my bad. So you guys can look at this article yourself. It is a Newsweek article, and it is titled Smoking Gun Evidence Found in the Bryan Kohberger Home. And it's dated April 11th of 2023. Okay. Now I just want to show you guys, I think we talked about the Instagram already, but I will share with you. This is multiple sources reported on this. Okay, so this is People Magazine. I just pulled the first one that popped up, but you can pull up multiple sourcing on this. CBS has an article on this. Let me see who all has an article. You can see there's multiple sources on this. And I showed all the different sources. You can see Fox News is another source on this. Okay, so we'll go with this one. All right, so this is the iconic picture that Kaylee posted just hours before she passed away. And of course, we know that Dylan and Bethany, who have been cropped out, were also in that shot. So numerous Instagrams using Bryan Kohberger's name appeared after his arrest was made, followed by the victims, but it was not immediately clear whether any of the accounts belonged to him. He was arrested December 30th, nearly 7 weeks after police alleged he entered a 6-bedroom home. That's the 1122 King Road house. So one account in his name was observed by Fox.
Joining us now is Dr. Michael Baden, forensic pathologist and a Fox News contributor. Dr. Baden, great to have you here.
Good to be. Sorry, Dr. Baden did an interview on this case. He allegedly was spamming one of the victims' Instagram with DMs. And this was reported out not just by Fox News, not just by People, but multiple sources. You guys can Google it. A message for the profile URL crime or CRIM.Kohberger read, the link you followed may be broken or the page may have been removed. And I suspect that law enforcement would have taken that down. It says here that Meta, Instagram's parent company, frequently takes down accounts linked to crimes like this. I'm watching my words. Or suspects that commit crimes like this. All 3 of the female victims had Instagram accounts linked that were all public, and none of them followed BK. The report did not name the account, but said the outlet had reviewed it before it became inactive. So Fox News looked at it. Kaylee's parents looked at it. So This is what it says. Quote, this is an unnamed investigator. Said he slid into one of the girls' DMs. And we know from Kaylee and from Christy and Steve Gonzalez that we believe it was Maddie. He slid into one of the girls' DMs several times, but she didn't respond. And the reason we think it's Maddie is because they said that he liked all of her posts, like he was following all three women, but he liked Maddie's posts. So this is what an unnamed source says. He slid into one of the girls' DMs several times, but she didn't respond. This is according to an unnamed investigator. Basically, it was just him saying, "Hey, how are you?" But he did it again and again. So I say again, stalking means that they have to be aware of him. So he was following them, but they weren't following him. I don't think they knew he existed. He reportedly sent the first message in late October and then a series of follow-ups when he did not receive a response. This is according to People. Fox News was unable to confirm the reporting independently. Latah County, Idaho Magistrate Judge Megan Marshall issued a gag order on the case earlier this month, restricting comment from investigators and attorneys from both sides. And this is the iconic post that Kaylee made. This image, this photograph of her. She posted this hours before she was done away with. Shannon Gray, the attorney for the Gonzalez family, said no one knew about Kohberger before the slayings, but he left open the possibility. Quote, any information any of the families gather regarding connections to any of the victims will be turned over to the Moscow Police Department. So this may be why they put a gag order on the family members too. Police allege that BK snuck into the 6-bedroom rental house on King Road on November 13th and did away with all 4 students, at least some of whom are believed to have been asleep at the start of the ambush. Okay, so I hope that answers that question for you guys. Feel free if you have other questions. I will. You can also do Google searches. The one thing I won't do though is I'm happy to address it on the next live stream, but I'm not going to link 20 articles and do a whole bunch of research to a question right then and there. I'll do it. I'll if I'm getting multiple questions from different people who want the same information, I will look it up. But you guys are also capable of doing a Google search. So I hope that helps answer that question. Let me go back to chat and check in and do some more questions. Let me see where I am. I lost my place in chat. Okay. And I do have some more stuff to talk about. Let's see. I want to check in with chat. But then I do want to go back into just a little bit more information on the victims. So who's telling the truth? Is it law enforcement or is it Ann Taylor, or are both sides sort of dancing around the truth? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Jen says they said 3 unknown male DNA. If it was known, they wouldn't have said unknown. So when you guys say they, tell me who they is so I know who they is, because when you're leaving me the comment, you know who they is, but when I'm reading it, I might not know who you're talking about, and I might not be able to address it. But I think the fact that they knew it was male DNA does say that it was tested. You wouldn't know DNA was male or female without testing it. Tara says, this is going to be a long trial. Oh yeah, it's supposed to start in August of 2025, and they're expecting it to last 3 months. I am going to be airing it on this channel. Norma says, reporter room, this past week, Ann Taylor found out things we didn't know, especially about Dylan. Yes, she did. Well, I don't know if she found out. I think she probably knew them, but Dylan was reportedly drinking, and I already talked about that on the last live stream I just did, so I won't go into that again. I don't want to rehash the same stuff. I do want you guys to know that I'm trying to give you guys all the best information, but without rehashing stuff I just talked about last week. But yeah, that's a great point. I don't know if she just found it out, but we do know that Dylan was drinking. We do have found out. We have been confirmed. We didn't know for sure. And we're going to find out more because remember, Judge Hippler said he's going to the hearing, the 5.5, 6 hour hearing that we did not get to see, that he locked the press out of, he is going to release transcripts of that hearing, and he's allowing the defense team and the prosecution both to redact any portions that they feel could compromise the case. So this way, it protects Bryan Kohberger's right to a fair trial because he is innocent until proven guilty. So yeah, great point, you guys. Norma says they also said Murphy was left in an open room. Murphy was found in Kaylee's room. He was in Kaylee's room. Hi, SJSU philosopher. Tara says, how did he not see the other two girls? This is really a weird situation. Well, Bethany was on the ground floor. And my understanding is that she she saw him stripping off his monkey suit. So if he was at the patio doors, which are right here, right? And she's coming up the stairs and just peeks her head up to see what's going on and see somebody that doesn't have clothes on. And that may be why there was texting going back and forth to Dylan and Bethany. Dylan may have said, yeah, I don't know who that was. I just locked the door. And Bethany said, well, I saw him. He didn't have anything on. I locked my door too. It could be just that benign on the texting. Jen says he didn't return the next morning, proven and stated even by the prosecution. No, he did return the next morning. He did. He did. So he did return the next morning. The cell phone pings will put him there. Wick said it's at me's mic. The gloves outside were ruled not relevant. Haven't heard anything else about the handrail. Jen says, Dylan also said that Maddie ran down the stairs and ran back up. I read you what she said. I read you what we know about that she said. That Ann Taylor is saying that she heard someone running down the stairs and back up. Nobody said it was Maddie. She may have thought it was Maddie. She may have thought it was Kaylee because, again, she's not thinking there's a perpetrator doing away with her friends. If she saw him and didn't call 911 and we know she was drinking, it could just be that she thought it was one of the friends of the victims. Remember, this is not the first time this has happened with roommate situations. It happened in the Jodi Arias, Travis Alexander case. It happened in the Elizabeth Smart case, and her little sister was in the same room, and she waited 6 hours in that room after her sister was kidnapped. I think he realized he didn't have the sheath when he got rid of the weapon in his clothes. Hi, Michelle. You can back up the live stream if you need to. Norma Freeland says, I don't see how she can be a reliable witness. Well, I think this is how I think the judge is going to decide. Ann Taylor doesn't want her to testify because, of course, she's describing a man who basically fits Bryan Kohberger's description. She's describing somebody 5'10" or taller. Check. Someone who has bushy eyebrows. Check. Someone who's dressed all in black. Don't know. Someone who's wearing a mask. Don't know. Someone who's athletic but not muscular. Check. So some of the things fit. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what the prosecution. I think that the judge will let it in. The fact that she was drinking is not going to help, and I think that if she does testify, and I think she will, I think that Ann Taylor will have a chance to impeach her if she can. And I think the same thing with Bethany. Mike said, I'm not listening to anything. And Taylor says, I'm waiting for the trial. You announced that there's no evidence, Jen, but we have a gag order in the case. So I'm not really sure if you expect that the prosecution is going to, and I don't know who she is. So I don't know if you who asked for the gag order. The defense team did. So the prosecution has to honor it. They're not going to go against what the judge ordered. They're not going to circumvent the gag order and jeopardize his right to a fair trial. This is a really serious case. It's a capital case, and his rights need to be protected. So the prosecution's going to honor that. So we don't know what the people that are announcing there's no evidence. We don't know that yet. Let's wait for the trial before we decide there's no evidence. Esmeralda said, oh, wow, I never heard this before. Randall says, I don't think any of the victims knew him. I agree with you, Randall. I think you're right. I don't think any of the victims knew him. Michael Kimmy says, Dylan's testimony is reliable because her description of the perpetrator does not exclude BK. I think that's why she will be put on the stand. I think the fact that Brett Payne included her in the affidavit, even though and I told you that the roommates they weren't just nicely interviewed, they were interrogated. They were interrogated. And Dylan, we found out during the hearings, according to Ann Taylor, and we don't know for sure this is true or not, but according to Ann Taylor, there was 3 interviews that she did with law enforcement. So she was interrogated as to what happened. So they would have been like one of the number 1 suspects, because law enforcement's going to work from the inside out. Yeah, so it doesn't rule out BK, and I think it does include him in a general description. And it also means that somebody was in the house and helps law enforcement with a timeline. Now, if they have BK's cell phone pings and dash video camera showing him, from stores and traffic cams, showing him going to the scene, or maybe geofencing, handshaking as he arrived we know the phone was switched off the night of the crime, but if they can show that he was there, his phone switched off right before he got there, and then it comes back on right when he's headed back to Pullman, Washington, I don't know. I think that's pretty scared. Yep, and I don't think the sorting trash in and of itself is going to be, but I don't think you use Ziploc bags to store your own DNA trash. So you put trash things on, but I don't think you're putting your trash into Ziploc bags and then walking them down. Remember that house I showed you in Albrightsville, that house sits on like a big chunk of land. It's like a quarter of an acre, maybe a half an acre between themselves and the next neighbor. It's not like the driveways were here. So law enforcement watched him walk down to the neighbor's house and put his trash into the neighbor's trash. So anyway, Norma said, how, when they found out they lied, they found out they were both downstairs and texting. They were not both downstairs. Dylan was on the 2nd floor and Bethany was on the 1st floor. And before we all say the roommates are all lying, I'm urging caution, because let's hear what they have to say before we all remember they're stuck under a court-ordered gag order, which means they don't even have the ability to defend themselves. So is it fair for us, because they don't have the ability to write a motion or say what they said, is it fair for us to not give them the benefit of the doubt? We're going to presume that BK is innocent until proven guilty. And I think the roommates haven't been charged with a thing. And I think if they had done something wrong, they would have been charged. Jeff says, hey, Jeff says, anyone seen that movie Gattaca? Great. Yeah, I saw it. That was really, really well done. All right, I'm going to leave the trash now. Thank you so much, Gibbo. Thank you. And I really appreciate I'll be frank for the Frank hearings. I really appreciate the £2.50. Thank you so much. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I really appreciate it. And Jazz is our head mod. She thanks you also. All right, let's give some other people a chance that I haven't, let me scroll down and see if there's somebody that I haven't addressed. Esmeralda says, I get representing your client, but to the point of eliminating evidence. It seems like Ann wants BK to get off scot-free. Am I wrong? Well, Ann Taylor's job, no, I'm not going to say if you're wrong or you're right. I don't know what she wants. I'm not in her head. But remember, her job is to defend him. So she is going to try everything to get the search for his parents' house thrown out, the search of his car thrown out. She really wants the evidence that was collected thrown out. And wondering if it's that ID that connects back to the house, because I think the expert that spoke on the air about that I just shared with you a few minutes ago, I think he was right. He said that if one of those IDs matches one of the victims, that's going to be just as strong evidence for the jury as the DNA. And the DNA matches BK in the 1 in octillion range. Leslie Keep It Real says, we will find out in court. Yeah, we have to wait. Some of the stuff we are going to have to wait for the trial. David asked, do you walk down the road and put garbage in your neighbor's trash bins? I don't. And I can see maybe doing that one time if it's full, but if it's just your personal trash that you've separated out from your parents' trash in a Ziploc bag, and that's what you're putting, I think that's going to be suspicious. And again, I don't think that in and of itself is going to, be the be all end all. But I do think this is a circumstantial case, which means that law enforcement has built it brick by brick, piece by piece. And so the prosecution is going to talk about the DNA on the inside of that knife sheath matching to the cheek swab that they collected from Bryan Kohberger. And it matches in the one octillion. Octillion is eight, not billion, not million, 8 octillion. So that's almost more than there are people on the planet. And I think you're going to combine that with all of the other things that we're talking about today. And again, this is going to be brick by brick by brick, piece by piece. And if it was helpful to the defense, I don't think Ann Taylor would be working, and she is working really hard to try to get this excluded. Wick says she's working hard for an appeal. I'm sure she's like, considering everything. Thank you so much, NJust, for gifting a reporter room membership. Who got the membership? Let me know. Jen says if her trash is full, my neighbors do it too. Do you only, if you have a partner or parents or somebody that you live with, do you only put your own personal trash in your neighbors, or do you bring all the trash? Hey, Jody, good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. I'm so glad to see you today. All right. So I feel like let me see what else we have. Granger says, I'm really hoping there's more DNA evidence than the sheath. Well, I don't know how much more they need. I mean, we're not going to know till we get to the trial, but I think it's going to be piece by piece, brick by brick. And then I think Ann Taylor is going to do everything she can to keep out the searches from his car and his parents' house. And I made that ID that was found inside a glove, inside a box, inside his parents' Albrightsville, Pennsylvania house. If that links back to Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, Xana, Britt, Bethany, Dylan, any of them, I think that's going to be a big problem. All right. Jeff says, I wonder which neighbor's house he put the trash in. I know he's got a house directly across the street, but there's others in either direction. Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out at the trial. Kimmy says, not only did he sort his personal trash, he walked it over to the neighbor's bin. Right, exactly. Let's see. There's somebody else that I haven't given a chance to say something. If you have said something, I'll still come back to you. I just want to give some people who I haven't taken their questions. Beth said, I had 2 classmates. I know live by Kenneth Bianca. Oh, wow. I'm so sorry, Beth. Which is how he got caught. He'd been in our dorm room as my suite mate worked with him. My heart is with Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk as even almost 50 years late. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Almost 50 years later, and I was nowhere near as connected. Wow. So sorry, Beth. Thank you for sharing that. Hi, I'm a meme girl. Hi, Donna. Okay. Kayla says, yeah, she was a 19-year-old college student. They were all drinking. It's Ann Taylor's job to create doubt, but I don't think she'll get anywhere with that. Do you think, let me know this. Put an A in the chat if you think that the judge is going to grant Ann Taylor's motions to suppress. 13 motions to suppress evidence. And I'm assuming if she doesn't want it let in, it's bad for Bryan Kohberger. Or do you think the judge, do you think he's going to grant any of her 13 motions to suppress? Or put a B in the chat if you think he's going to not grant any of the motions to suppress and he's going to allow all the evidence in. She'll have a chance to cross-examine Dylan and Bethany. She'll have a chance to refute the evidence. What do you think Judge Hippler is going to do with that? Yeah, Granger said, I can't see any reason they can frame Bryan Kohberger. I don't think so either. And the fact that there have been no other crimes like that since he was put in jail, this is something that Gisela K from Grizzly True Crime brought up. And I think that, that's very interesting. Hi, Brother Mike. He says, BK looks to be the perpetrator. I'm watching my words. Randall says it's been open and shut case, which would have been over a long time ago. And Wick wants to know, why would BK be framed and by who? Well, I think because there's this gag order, it's left this space where the roommates can't come out and defend themselves, so they can't grant interviews to Dateline NBC or something like that. So it's left this space where anything can be attributed to the roommates. Anything can be people can say, well, there's no evidence. Well, we haven't seen the evidence yet, right? We haven't seen evidence. We haven't had the trial yet. So just announcing that there's no evidence doesn't mean anything because we haven't seen it yet. Now, if we get to the trial and there's no evidence, well, okay. I'll be calling that out while we're watching it live if we don't see evidence. Let me know what you think. All right. Rollo says the PCA almost did everything that the PCA said had been false and misleading, except the part where the phone data shows he wasn't in the area. The phone data shows he wasn't in the area. Where did you get that from? If you guys are like citing something like that, you're saying something sweeping, like I didn't show him in the area. Please tell me what your sourcing is on that. Like link an article or something like that, or link the affidavit, or link the portion of. Give me a timestamp of the hearing, because the phone data is going to show the cell phone tower pings are going to show that he was in the area, and I believe that geofencing will be used. That will also show that he was in the area, but we'll see. I could be wrong. It could be, it'll show he's not, but I didn't see the PCA. So I don't know where that came from. Cheeto says, check Brian's neighbor's bins in Washington for DNA. They did. They stopped the trash truck when they were finally able to get his DNA. That's the DNA that Ann Taylor wants to talk about. That's the IgG DNA that they used to link the perpetrator, that knife sheath DNA, to somebody, a descendant or a distant relative or an ancestor of Bryan Kohberger. Somebody was trying to see, look up their genealogy. But I don't think that motion is going to be upheld because it already was overruled by John Judge in Latah County. Ann Taylor said that. Okay, thank you. All right, let's see what else. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's okay to have different opinions. We don't all have to agree. We're not going to all agree on every case, right? We're not going to all look at every case and agree. And sometimes when we see the evidence that comes in, we might be like, I don't know. Like a lot of people were like really thinking that in the Delphi case of Richard Allen, that he did it. And then when they saw what the prosecution had, there was some people who felt like, you know what? I'm not sure he's guilty. And other people saw the evidence, and obviously the jury said that he is guilty. For my part, I'm not sure he acted alone. I felt like there were multiple people using the Anthony Schatz account, and the girls were found on Ron Logan's property. So we're not all going to agree on every single case, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree and still interact with each other. Okay, I just want to put that out there. Sixth Sense really said, wouldn't a person who is being framed in a DP case say they were being framed? I hope so. Norma says, no, they proved she was lying when they said she was frozen, state of shock. Also, they said after downloading both of the girls' phones, found out they were both downstairs and texting. Nobody has proved that she was lying yet. Frozen state of shock could just be frozen for a few minutes. And like they may have asked her something. We don't know what they asked her yet. We'll have to wait till she testifies. But maybe they asked her, did you say anything to him? Why didn't he see you? And she may have said, I was frozen in a state of shock. And she may have frozen for a few seconds and then thought, oh, this house is a party house. My roommates are so loud, and locked the door and clicked it, and may have been texting. We don't know what the text said with Bethany yet. But nobody has proved that she was lying because we don't know how long she said she was frozen. So again, the gag order means that anything can be attributed back to the roommate. So I'm urging caution there. Let's wait. I'm not saying they won't be impeached. I'm not saying they will be impeached. I'm just saying let's wait on that because they're stuck under a gag order. Jeff says defense attorneys This is Jody Arias' defense attorney. Defense attorneys have to say certain things. We don't necessarily believe what we're saying, but we have to assert the argument. The client is to direct the defense. Oh, wow. That's very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jeff. And Bo says he'll give you free guitar lessons. There you go. Rillo says, why is the state objecting for the screenshot of the first responder's body cam of Maddie's room from entering into the hearing as evidence? I don't know if I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that they were objecting. When we get the transcript, I'll go through it. If you want to tell me, like, give me a timestamp, I'll go look at it and see exactly what was said and address it on the next live stream. Rollo, great question. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Brother Mike it says Ann Taylor gives him a headache. Jeff says it's true. Ann has a bumper sticker that says, no, yeah, I don't think you're just kidding. Okay. I was like, what? I'm a meme girl said, but if Ann Taylor could prove he has OCD, that might be a reason for the trash being bagged the way that he did. Right. So she'll have a chance to refute, anything that's brought in. Kami says it's a good point, but you still wouldn't walk it to a neighbor's. I want to say one more thing about OCD. OCD makes it more likely that you would become obsessed with somebody too, right? So the OCD works in favor of him separating, you wearing gloves or separating his trash for his parents' trash, maybe. But it also works against him, and that OCD also means that you're more likely to become obsessed with somebody. Cheeto says, OCD, why no DNA recovered after weeks of cleaning? Well, yeah, the law enforcement said they watched him meticulously cleaning the Hyundai Elantra multiple times while he was at the house. Amelia says, you'd think that would be the case. Actions speak louder than words. Yep. So some things we just are going to have to wait. And Tara says, I don't see a judge throwing out all the evidence. I don't think so either. I'm really curious what the judge is going to do. Please, if you can, hit the like button. I think I missed. Somebody gave channel memberships. Let me see if I can find it. I think I missed it. Okay, I see this one. Thank you so much, Njaz. And then oh, here we go. Okay, somebody's starring these. Whoever is starring these, thank you. Okay, so we have a super sticker. Thank you. Kami, thank you so much for being a channel member for 20 months. And if you are not a channel member, please feel free to let me know. Gibba, thank you so much. And Njaz, thank you so much. And Njaz gifted, in addition, she gifted 5 Reporter Room channel memberships. So thank you so much for that. And let me just do a quick thank you too while I'm thinking about it. I do want to say, if you want to be listed, thank you to our producers, George Brown, Njaz, Sasha Angel, Not So Saintly, Debbie Jo, and Jane J. And remember, I have a Facebook group. Also, if you want to connect, thank you so much for your super thanks, Njaz, Brother Mike, Michael Cole, Jilly, Njaz, Brother Mike. Thank you. And thank you for your gifted memberships. This is from last week. So next week will be out. And then thank you to all of our channel members. We couldn't not do the show without you. I really appreciate all that you do. And if you're not a channel member, we do regular channel member live streams. Your name will appear just like this. And you get a check mark next to your name. And it starts green the first month, the second month it's red, and then the third month and thereafter it turns into a blue check mark. And that's why you see people with check marks in the chat. They are your channel members. And then the wrench is for the mods. And thank you so much to our mods and to all of our subscribers. I cannot get to 40,000 subscribers without your help. All right, let's go back to the comments, because I'm like so behind on questions, and I do want to take your questions. That's the fun part about doing a live stream. All right, so I think we were around in here. Yeah, because we had Cheetos asking me about the OCD. Okay. Cheetos wants to know OCD up all night cleaning, check the neighbor's bins. Let's see if he's so OCD he cleaned the inside of his neighbor's trash can in Washington. And Leslie agrees with you, Amelia. And so does Arizona, AZ. I don't know if that's Arizona, maybe AZ. Kimmy says, it bothers me when people blame Burke for Jean Bonnet. He was just a little boy. Yeah. Tara says, I don't see a judge throwing out all of the evidence. So it sounds like you don't think the judge is going to grant the defense motions. I'm curious. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up. Let them know it's a G-rated show. Donna says this is a creepy case. Yeah, I think this is a really scary case because the victims were just in their room, in their bedrooms, minding their own business, right? They were in bed. They were minding their own business. They weren't bothering anybody. They did. I don't even think they, in my opinion, just from what the prosecutor said, I don't think they knew BK even existed. And looking at the stalking statute and how that was, I don't think they knew he even existed. So when he came into the room, I doubt they even know who they were. And there, I could found the 5 channel memberships from NJAZ. Thank you, NJAZ. I really appreciate that. If you got a channel membership from NJAZ, let me know because your name's going to appear starting on Monday. So the next video I put out, your name will appear in my videos in live streams. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up. I'm a meme girl, said I had to use my neighbor's trash bins when mine were full to put a thing or two in, and they didn't mind. Grunger said, I have this on the background while I separate my trash. Got to get to my neighbor's house later. Oh, Grunger, thank you. This is such a like somber, serious case. It's just nice to just get a little bit of relief in there. Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah, welcome to our new channel members. If you're a new channel member, raise your hand. Let me see who you are. Patricia Warner got a free membership. Welcome, Patricia. I'm glad you're back too, Jody. Really glad to see you. Sue Joy says, in regards to Dylan Mortensen, I do believe fright can affect everyone in different ways. Yeah. Remember, Elizabeth Smart's sister was in the room with her and she didn't tell anyone for 6 hours. Now, I don't think that Dylan was frozen for 8 hours. That's originally how I read it. But in thinking things through, I think that was probably more in response to a question from law enforcement of why didn't he see you if you saw him? Remember, she was being interrogated because they were working from the inside out and they didn't know who did it. So I heard their interrogation was really, really rough. I heard it was not a nice. Yeah, Lizzie says it's possible to have OCD and still, and I'm going to watch my words here, still commit the crimes. Hi, Lisa. What do you think it will be? I'm a meme girl said, yeah, she saw a man clad in black in her house late at night after hearing weird noises. It's sketchy. It is, but remember, she'd probably been drinking. She was just 19 years old and she lived in a party house. So it wasn't like, this was a quiet house. We've all seen the body cam footages from law enforcement responding to the crime. We've all seen that footage, right? So anyway, I think it's very, very interesting. We're not going to find out everything until we get to the trial, but I look forward to watching the trial with you and just seeing, and I'm really looking forward to going through those transcripts. As soon as those get released, I'm going to go through everything and just highlight all of the key things, and then we'll go through it together as a reporter room true crime community. And then Justice, thank you to you, Patricia Warner, for your support. Mike says, who knows? Kids are taught to shelter in place. They didn't discover until the friends came the next morning. Who knows? But they're not guilty of anything. And Patricia says, thank you to you and Jess for the membership. I just renewed. Thank you, Patricia. Rolla says, AZ says, Rolla, we don't always just accept a defense attorney's word as the absolute truth. That's just not how justice is determined. I think a lot of people feel like the defense attorney isn't allowed to lie to the court. And, My feeling is that you can like word things in a way that, still get your point across and still you're advocating for your client. So, but we'll find out who's telling the truth. Is it Bryan Kohberger and the defense team, or is it law enforcement? Because both things cannot be true. Jody says probably code was don't call the police because of previous noise reports. It could be that the roommates were debating, but yeah, the law enforcement had been out there multiple times. You're right, Jody. And maybe they decided not to call the police because they didn't want to get their roommates in trouble. Remember, this was a party house. They were having parties at this house when the roommates weren't even there. So Leslie says, I tend to believe law enforcement in this case. Well, we will find out more, but I hope I showed you the receipts. I hope I answered the questions that you guys had. You left me some really good comments last week in the comment section. I hope you'll do that again. I really do appreciate reading all of your comments, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm doing a members only live stream next.